Today, especially on television, it has become a tradition to curse the Soviet past, and the name of Joseph Stalin in the society of young people is strongly associated with the Gulag and repression. In this video, we will open for you the other side of Joseph Stalin, in which the official media will never definitely show. We will talk about the grandiose projects both implemented and unfinished. Stalin took Russia with a plow and left it with atomic weapons. This phrase belongs to Winston Churchill, one of the biggest political heavyweights of the last century. If you agree with this statement, like this video, and if you don't agree, write a reasonable comment. But it is better to do after watching this video. Under Stalin, more than 1,500 largest industrial factories were built, including Dneprogas, Uralmash, many automobile factories, great plants in Magnitogorsk, Chelyabinsk, Norilsk, Stalingrad. During his leadership for 30 years, an agrarian, impoverished country dependent on a foreign capital has turned into a military-industrial, powerful state of a global scale. But these are just well-known facts. And we have prepared for you today the top 10 Stalin projects that are worth remembering today. Unprecedented rates of national recovery and economic growth. In the late 50s, analysts predicted that the USSR could soon outrun all developed countries. In the West, they calculated that if production in the USSR is maintained, then by 1970 its growth rate will be 3 to 4 times higher than the American one. The magazine Nation's Business for 1953 wrote that the USSR, in terms of economic growth, is ahead of any country, including the United States. By the way, the world's first nuclear power plant in the USSR started working 2 years earlier than in the USA and a year earlier than in Britain. A 5-hour working day and price cuts. In 1952, Stalin proposed to establish a 5-hour working day. He wanted people to spend more of their free time for their families' education, creativity, and raise their cultural level. He believed that human happiness is the highest goal of the state. In the USSR, the length of the working day was only 7 hours, despite the fact that at the end of the 19th century people worked in factories for 14-16 hours per day. In Tsarist Russia, Nicholas II for the first time established the norm of the working day, 11.5 hours. And it happened only after protests and demonstration of the people. Soviet scientists of that period spoke of the inevitability of a further reduction in working hours. According to their estimates, by the end of the 20th century, a living standard with a rational organization of work would be achieved, and only a 4-hour working day would be enough. It would be wrong to think that such a serious cultural growth of the members of society can be achieved without serious changes in the present state of labor. To do this, first of all, it is necessary to reduce the working day to at least 6 and then to 5 hours. Stalin didn't manage to set a 5-hour working day, but his plan for a constant and gradual reduction in prices for products and goods was implemented. Prices for basic foodstuff over the post-war 5 years have decreased by more than 2 times, while in the largest capitalist countries these prices have even increased in 2 or more times in some countries. Creation of the Soviet elite and social elevator. A significant part of the old specialists emigrated. The country faced the task of building its own scientific, creative and technical elite. This task was brilliantly implemented in the shortest possible time. Former homeless children, children of workers and peasants became academicians, bright scientists and great doctors. Creative unions were made. It raised literature, theater and cinema to a high level. Palaces of creativity, houses of culture were given to children. Any child could attend clubs and studios for free. The Stalinist education system is still considered one of the most efficient in the world. Garden City, the country, was just rising after the devastation. Most people either did not have their own house or lived in communal apartments. And at the same time, the architects were developing a project called the Garden City, which provided for the construction of the most comfortable cities for life, immersed in greenery and equipped with everything necessary for human lives, both material and spiritual aspects. But this project never came to reality. Protective forest belts and the construction of artificial ponds to increase yields. If not for this comprehensive project, then a significant part of the noblest soils of the steppe zone would have been destroyed by hot dry winds and erosion. The plan to grow forest areas to protect the fields was unparalleled in the world. There was a plan to plant more than 4 million hectares of forests and create a state field protection belts of trees with a length of more than 5,000 kilometers. In addition, forest belts of local importance were planted too. In the first year of implementation of this project, it was possible to increase the yield of cereals by 30%, vegetables by 70%, and forage grasses by 200%. In addition, ponds, channels, and other artificial reservoirs of water were created. A scientific approach to soil cultivation was applied. The purpose of this project was to cover completely the internal needs of the country. And despite of the fact that in 1953 Khrushchev curtailed this project and closed about 1,500 forest protection stations, today we see numerous forest belts along the fields. Creation of a unique seed fund and productive varieties. This work was started in the pre-war years. The government equipped expeditions not only to all regions of the USSR, but also to many countries of the world. During the war in Hungary-Leningrad, this seed fund was cherished like the soul of the country. In the post-war years, local schools of agricultural breeders created unique varieties of grain, which were not afraid of frosts and were several times higher in yield than already existed varieties. It helped to solve the problem of providing the country with bread. Transpolar Highway. In 1947 a grandiose construction began. It included more than 80,000 people. We are talking about the railway which was supposed to connect the Urals and Dudinka, passing through Salihard. There was already a railway from Dudinka to Norilsk. For 5 years the plan was almost implemented and even trains began to run. Telegraph communication was established. Scientists were engaged in projects for the effective development of the North. In 1953, under Khrushchev, the road was abandoned, equipment was destroyed, dozens of steam locomotives went underwater. But in 2018, the decision was taken to restore the Transpolar Highway. Creation of a large ocean fleet. This program was launched in the pre-war years. According to the 10-year plan for the construction of Navy ships in 1937-1947, was planned to build the large ocean liners at domestic shipyards. And in the plan extended until 1955 there were also 9 aircraft carriers equipped with an air group of 40 combat planes. At the same time a fleet was created for scientific purposes and primarily for the polar regions research. However, by 1954, Khrushchev had almost completely curtailed this project. Tunnel crossing to Sakhalin. Sounds fantastic, but meanwhile this Stalinist project, during which it was planned to lay more than 500 kilometers of railway lines and build a 10-kilometer tunnel passage from Cape Lazarev to Sakhalin, existed not only on paper. By the spring of 1953, 120 kilometers of railway had been built and a mine had been dug necessary for the construction of the tunnel. Do I need to say that with the coming to power of Khrushchev, construction was stopped? The main Turkestan Canal. It was one of the largest post-war projects designed to provide water to the desert and arid regions of Central Asia. According to the plan, the length of the canal was to be 1,200 kilometers. The plan also included the construction of 3 large hydraulic power plants. By the time of Stalin's death, only 1 railway line had been built. The project was cancelled. Later, the Karakum Canal was built, significantly inferior in its length and scale to the Turkestan Canal. After many decades, it is possible to assess the scale of the individual, but it is difficult to understand the real internal mechanisms that prompt a person to act one way or another. All this suggests that we cannot delete the entire pages of our history. Of course, during the years Stalin was the head of the country, several millions of people suffered from repressions. But this will be the topic of a future video. What we all know for sure is that this person played a great role in the history of the country, and it is a question: would Russia exist now if not Stalin?